The town called him a monster until the blizzard hit, a frontier rescue story. The first time the people of Frost Hollow saw Elias Kane, he was dragging a fallen pine out of the road with his bare hands. Snowflakes clung to the wild mess of his beard, his coat hung in tatters around his massive frame, and his shadow stretched long across the winter-brown grass. Children pressed their faces to frosted windows just to get a glimpse of him. Grown men stopped talking when he passed by. And by sundown, whispers had carried through every cabin and storefront in town. He's not natural. Too big, too strange. Don't let him near your kids. Elias never corrected them. He kept to himself in the shack he built at the forest's edge, close enough to town to trade for flour and matches, far enough to avoid their stares. The only soul who spoke to him was old Mrs. Alder, the baker. She'd set aside burnt loaves for him, claiming she hated waste, though her smile always suggested something gentler. People fear what they don't understand, she'd say, packing bread into a cloth bag for him. Give 'em time. But time, it seemed, only made their suspicions more creative. Children dared each other to sneak near his shack. Hunters swore they heard him growling at night, though it was more likely the wolves. Every torn coat, every missing chicken, every unexplainable sound in the woods somehow pointed back to Elias Kane. It didn't matter that he never complained. Or that he always stepped aside on the street. Or that he paid double for supplies so the shopkeepers wouldn't have to touch his coins. To them, he was a monster. And monsters didn't get the benefit of the doubt. Winter in Frost Hollow was hardly gentle on the best of years. But the blizzard that arrived in late January struck like a living thing, an angry, howling beast that swallowed the sky and shook the earth. Wind whipped through the valley, tearing shingles from roofs and ripping clotheslines from their poles. Snow piled so fast that doors had to be shouldered open just to see daylight. By nightfall, the storm had become lethal. Inside the town hall, where families huddled under quilts and prayed the walls would hold, a Deputy Merritt burst through the door, his mustache crusted with ice. "It's the Thompson girl," he panted. "Little Sarah. She wandered out before the storm hit. Search party lost her trail minutes ago. Tracks were blown clean." A inhuman hush fell over the room. Mrs. Thompson crumpled into her husband's arms, her sob choking out one desperate word. "Please." A search party was formed, but it was chaos, lanterns snuffed by wind, horses panicked, grown men stumbling blindly through white oblivion. Frostbite crept into fingers and toes. Visibility dropped to a handspan. The storm mocked them, devouring every trail they thought they found. And then, as if the blizzard had a sense of cruelty, someone muttered a terrible truth. No one survives long out there. Hope dimmed. Some believed the little girl was already gone. Others were too scared to voice their agreement. But Mrs. Alder thought of someone else. Through the window, she'd seen it, the distant orange flicker of a lantern moving toward town from the forest's edge. Elias Kane. Carrying firewood on his back like it weighed nothing at all, trudging through the storm as though winter itself feared to stop him. She hurried to the door. "Elias! Over here!" Heads turned sharply. The room tensed with silent dread. No one ever called for Elias. No one ever needed him. But as he stepped inside, snow caked in his hair and beard, every eye clung to him with desperate fascination. He set the firewood down without a word. Mrs. Alder gripped his arm. "The Thompson girl is missing." For the first time since he arrived in Frost Hollow, Elias Kane spoke louder than a mumble. "Which direction?" he asked. Merritt blinked. "South Ridge, but we lost her trail." Elias picked up a rope, a lantern, and a wool blanket from the supplies table. When the deputy tried to protest, Elias simply said, "I know these woods." He didn't wait for permission. He pushed the door open and stepped into the storm. Hours passed. People kept vigil by the windows, watching the dark where Elias had disappeared. The storm raged on, merciless and loud, rattling the shutters like fists demanding entry. A few muttered fears that he might never come back, that the woods had claimed both the girl and the man they had misunderstood. And then, just when despair had settled over the crowd like a heavy quilt, a faint sound broke through the wind. A shout. A man's voice. The door burst open again, this time from the outside, and the room erupted into gasps. Elias Kane staggered in, face blistered from frostbite, arms trembling from exhaustion, but still holding the wool blanket tight to his chest. Inside it, little Sarah Thompson blinked weakly, her cheeks red with life. A scream, a pure, grateful scream, escaped her mother as she rushed forward. The girl was wrapped in her parents' arms within seconds, crying softly into her mother's coat. Elias swayed, lightheaded, and Mrs. Alder caught his arm before he hit the floor. "You saved her," she whispered. He didn't answer. He couldn't. His lips were blue, his breath shallow. Others hurried to bring him blankets, warm water, anything they could find. The same men who had once crossed the street to avoid him now steadied him, lifted him, thanked him through shaking voices. Deputy Merritt looked him in the eye, the first time anyone in Frost Hollow had dared to. "Elias, we owe you our lives." But Elias only managed for quiet words. Just wanted her safe. By morning the storm had broken, leaving the world glittering under a peaceful blue sky. And for the first time since his arrival, Elias Kane stepped outside to find the entire town of Frost Hollow waiting for him. Baskets of food. Fresh clothes. Offers to help repair his shack. The Thompson girl clutching a bouquet of winterberries she'd picked herself. And Mrs. Alder standing proudly beside him as if she'd known all along. The mayor approached and extended a hand. "If you'll accept it, we'd be honored to call you a friend of Frost Hollow." Elias hesitated only a moment before shaking it. Not because he needed their approval, but because kindness, when offered freely, was a bridge worth crossing. As the townsfolk gathered around him, some apologizing, some thanking him, some only able to smile through their tears, Elias Kane felt something warm settle into his chest. He had been called a monster. But sometimes, he realized, people just needed one brave moment to learn what a person truly is. And sometimes, a single act of compassion is enough to thaw even the coldest hearts.